Hi everyone, this is a relatively brief introductory video that will give you a fairly brief overview of how ICT Cross Curriculum is going to run this year. My name's Nikki Carr, just in case you didn't recognise the voice. I actually won't be teaching the class every week this semester. My responsibilities as Program Manager of the BEd prevents me from taking much of a teaching load at all. But I do miss you, and I will pop in from time to time and play some games and have some fun with you. I am leaving you in the more than capable hands of Kiara Umina, who has taught with us for a couple of years, and you are going to have a fine time with her this semester. One of the things I want you to think about between now and your first class is to think about why you are here. Why did you choose this course? And Kiara will talk about this with you in the first class. But some of the common answers I've had in the past to this question is because you love technology, you're what we call a technophile. You're okay with technology but have no idea how to use it effectively in the classroom. Another one that's missing from the list is that you're absolutely crap with technology and are scared that you don't know enough. And then there's the honest answer that you weren't interested in any of the other electives on offer, so you thought you'd do this one. All of those are okay, but I want you to really think about why you're here and come prepared to share your reasons. This is a course that's taught in two parts, largely because we have a mid-semester break, and then the following week after the mid-semester break is the grand final day, public holiday. Only in Melbourne would we have such a thing. So I'm kind of dividing the course into two areas. The first part is where we want you to improve your knowledge and skills in digital technologies, and we'll do that through peer teaching of a range of very commonly used applications amongst leading edge teachers. So teachers who are leading the charge in using digital technologies in their classroom. You would find these apps commonly used by them, but you might not have had experience with them before or seen them used. Hopefully some of you will, and you'll be able to share your experiences with your peers. But each of you will be put into a group, so you'll do this in week 1, and you'll be allocated a particular app or maybe a suite of very similar apps. And you're asked then to develop a professional development resource for your peers and to then teach them how to use that app in an engaging professional learning session in class time. At the same time as doing that, you'll be engaged in some online conversations, because this is Nikki and this is what Nikki does in her classes. So we want you to engage in what I'm calling a professional conversation, and you will inform your views in that conversation by engaging with the set readings in the first 4 weeks and engaging in the online lectures. And so you should all be fairly familiar with that way of learning. Last year, the students blew themselves away, and me, by the quality and extent of that conversation. Yes, it took them time, but they all said without exception how much they learnt from each other and from those conversations. And I guess that's another way for me to dip into and out of the course as well through those conversations. After the break, or probably even just a little bit before the break, we're going to start looking at the new digital technologies curriculum. And I've got some new toys for you to play with in class time, which should be loads of fun, loads of what Seymour Papert calls hard fun. And that's one of the foundations of my own teaching and learning philosophy, is that learning isn't easy, and nor should it be easy. But the pleasure and the satisfaction you get out of meeting a challenging learning situation is just immeasurable and highly valued. So for some of you, the digital technologies curriculum might pose that challenge that might put you a little bit outside your comfort zone. But we're going to do that in a really well-supported way, and as I said, with some fun new toys that will be a blast. Can't wait for that. Talked earlier a little bit about why you were here, and I need to explain why I'm here, if only virtually. I am a very strong believer in the positive role that digital technologies can play in the classroom. I also acknowledge the role that digital technologies play in 21st century economic and social life, and increasingly in curriculum. So I have a really strong belief, but I am not uncritical of how technology is and can be used, and a little bit more of that in a moment. I'm also here because I really believe that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I use that term quite a lot in relation to technology, and gets back to that critical nature. Just because you can use technology doesn't necessarily mean that you should, or that you should use it in a particular way. These are the questions I actually want you to grapple with throughout the course. It's not just about learning how to use the apps and the bells and whistles and the buttons and dials. It's about thinking about, how does this fit into my classroom, into my practice for my students? One of the concepts that we're playing with in the background, and I won't spend too much time on it, but it's this thing called TPACK, which you may or may not have heard about, and you might or might not want to go and read a little bit about it. But Lee Shulman developed the pedagogical content knowledge model, which suggests that good teaching happens at the intersection of a teacher's knowledge about the content that they're teaching and their understanding of the pedagogy of how best to teach that content. And a few years ago, Mishra and Kohler decided to add technology to that model and called it the Technology Pedagogy Content Model. And they argue that the best teaching in the 21st century happens at the intersection of your knowledge about the content that you're teaching, your knowledge about what is the best way to teach that content, and your knowledge and skill in choosing the appropriate technology to enhance that. Well, at least that's my spin on it. And that's what I want you to constantly think about is this technology going to enhance my teaching and my students' understanding of the concept being taught? The Victorian Education Department has an instrument called ePotential. And at some point, we're going to try and get you to think about where you are on that scale. And it's a continuum of technology competence as a teacher, from being at foundation level through emergent, being innovative, and then being transformative in how you're using technology. And I want you to think throughout this course about how you might be moving from one part of that continuum to another, but not just in learning and teaching, but in how you use technology in a range of teaching areas, which are these things down here, not just along here. This is a diagram of Ruben Puenten. Well, I can never say his name. You can read it down here. Ruben's model is called the SAMAR model: substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. And what he was arguing about is kind of takes the TPACK model a little bit further, and also is another way of thinking about ePotential and whether you're a foundation or emergent or a beginning user of digital technologies in the classroom, up to somebody who's transformative. And you'll see here that Ruben has transformation here. And he talks about technology is often being used to enhance, and that's actually a word that I used earlier. And a lot of the focus of teachers, and maybe a lot of the focus of the uses of technology that you've seen on your placements, have been in this area, where we're using technology to directly substitute what we do with no functional change. You could argue that writing up a good copy on the computer is a straight form of substitution. And it could be that you're using technology to act as a direct tool substitute with some functional improvement. And I sometimes think some of the tools that we use to represent our knowledge, the digital tools that we might use to represent our knowledge, is a bit of an augmentation. There are some apps that simply just replace how we might do something by hand by doing it digitally. Then we get into Ruben's area of transformation, where technology allows us to really significantly redesign the sorts of tasks we ask our learners to do. And then the step further is redefinition. How does technology allow for the creation of new tasks that we previously couldn't do? And this is particularly the case in schools. There are lots of things that we can do now thanks to technology in schools that previously were only able to be done in the world of work beyond a school. So as you're teaching each other your various applications through the first part of the course, I want you to constantly come back to this same model and think about whether the uses of technology that are being discussed are enhancement or whether we move into transformation. And try and think about how you might adapt things to be really transformative. That's where I'd like us to be trying to think. So how will we operate in this time? I love this quote from Willy Wonka. So much time and so little to do. Wait a minute, strike that, reverse it. Sorry, it's from the original Willy Wonka film back when I was a kid. I know ancient history. So how we operate? Face-to-face. Your workshops are face-to-face workshops, and you'll be spending most of the time in those workshops developing your skills and understanding and having conversations. You'll also be operating online, so we're a very blended course. The course website has all of your assessments, it has a stack of readings, it has a stack of other useful resources, it has your learning and teaching schedule, so make use of the course website. We also will be using a Google site this semester, which is where you will host your information about the app that you and your group research, investigate and share with your peers, and Kiara will show you how to access that in the tute. And we can also be using Twitter, and I'll be using Twitter throughout the course to share more resources and stuff with you. And how we operate on a set of shared values. Those shared values mean that I expect, and Kiara expects, you turn up. You turn up physically, and you turn up prepared, and you turn up willing to participate and support your peers. I do not want to see students come, do their presentation, and then never be seen again. That is just not on, and I certainly won't tolerate it and make your life pretty unhappy if that's what you do. So it's a value of a shared commitment to peer-supported learning, and that will only work if you actually participate. I talked a little bit before about Twitter. I know Kiara's going to be the person in the classroom most of the time, but as I said, I'll be with you virtually. You can follow me. My Twitter handle is @car_Nikki, NICKY. None of this double KI business. And if you are tweeting, if you discover resources or ideas or comments that you want to share, use the hashtag ICTXCurric. Add that to your tweets about digital technologies and use that to search for all of our class tweets. Go find some other people and organisations to follow. You guys have a great time. I'll see you. I'll drop in unexpectedly to come play. Have a great semester.